Alright, so in this video we're going to take a look at developing a very preliminary floor plan. Alright, we're going to be using Revit and using this sketch as a reference to quickly lay out the floor plan with some very simple labels. And we'll be using different wall types, window types, and door types to quickly lay out this floor plan. So if you take a look at the resources, here's the resources. We just looked at the sketch. We've got some instructions, and I also have a completed project for reference, as well as a sample of the output that will look something like this. So we're going to be able to produce a PDF or hard copy straight from the model view. Okay, so what I'll do right now is I'll just take a look at my instructions here on my separate screen, and now you can see here our Revit interface. We'll go ahead and get started with an architectural template. Alright, so here we are. Some of the things you want to keep in mind include your project browser and your properties here. And we're going to be mostly working with the Architecture tab and the Annotate tab. And then once we have the completed floor plan, we'll be able to do our print. So here's what we could do. If we take a look at the sketch, what we're going to do is first lay out the walls. Right? So here we're looking at the dimensions from outside to outside. We have 48 by 26. So the key here is choosing the correct wall type and then also establishing the correct baseline or location line for your walls. And that's how you'll be able to use the dimensions to properly size and locate your walls. So let's take a look at that. Okay, we're going to start with the 9-foot 12-inch generic wall. So if we come over here to architecture, we're going to take a look at wall, and you can see in my browser I'm working in level 1. Now what you see in your drawing area here are the default symbols or tags for your elevation views. Okay, let's not delete them, but let's start somewhere in the middle, in the center of that. As you can see right here, as I started with the wall tool, you can see the ribbon change, and you can see we're automatically in the draw using 2D tools there. I draw your attention to the options bar. Okay, here's where you can see that the wall is going to be unconnected, and we could specify the height here, 9 feet. Now the other thing is we have to also specify the location line, which we're going to use the finish face exterior. Also, if you take a look at the properties here, okay, let's switch over, and you can see in your selector here, when I click there, you can see all of the basic wall types in this current family, and we're going to be using the generic 12-inch. Okay, so we got our type, we've got an unconnected wall, 9 feet high. Now we're ready to start drafting. Okay, now we can start drafting with just a simple line, and you can see as you direct it to 0-degree angle, all right, you can see the horizontal tooltip there. Once you direct it into one of these directions, you can simply type in the distance, right? So we have 48, for example, right? Enter, and then you could point downwards at 270 or 90, and then type in 26. Now we're able to do this because we've set the location line as well, right? Outside to outside. And then now what I could do is I could use tracking. When I track, all I'm doing is hovering to an endpoint or some other object snap mode, and then tracking away from it. You can see that little extension line there, right? Just click and then come back and close it up. Now another way that we could do this would be to simply sketch out. Let me select and delete. We can again go back to the wall. You'll notice the settings that I've made are still there. We could also use something like a rectangle. And even if we didn't set the let's say the dimensions correctly to start with, you'll notice now that as I place the geometry, you'll notice the temporary dimensions. Okay? With temporary dimensions, however, you'll notice that even though I set my location line to the finished face exterior, these will always go to the center of the wall. All temporary lines will go to the center of the wall, right? So I can still resize it simply by selecting any one of the walls and then clicking on the text here, right? So if I go from center to center and I've got a 12-inch wall, I'm going to make this my 49 feet, right? Sorry, 47 feet. To add the 6 inches and 6 inches to make it to the outside, right? Also, if I use the vertical here, you'll notice the other temporary dimension. And there we've got what, 81, right? Oh, I'm sorry. We wanted the length here to be the 48, right? If I go from center to center, it's going to be 47. And then if I select here and select the text, I want this to be 25. Okay, now how do I validate the dimensioning, right? Well, you'll notice if I come over to my annotate, okay, and I use the align, you'll notice that now you can do your options here to the wall faces, and you'll see if I go to the edge there and the edge there and I place my dimension, you'll see I have the right measurement. So again, there's going to be different ways to lay out your geometry. Figure out the best way that works for you. Okay, a couple other drafting tips here as we continue with the layout. If we take a look at our sketch once again. So we've got our exterior wall there, 48 feet by 26. Now we've got the 2 bedrooms, right? 20 by 12. So we're going to need to make it 20 feet long by 12 feet wide. Let's pull this down. Take a look at how we'll do that. We're going to be using a different wall type here, and that's going to be the generic 5-inch wall. So if I come back to architecture, look at wall, take a look at your basic wall type. We're going to be using the generic 5-inch. Okay. Again, if you take a look at the options, you can see there, it's actually on level 2, right? We should be on level 1. And maybe what I need to do, let me cancel this to make sure if I go back to my project browser, let's make sure I'm in level 1, okay? To start with, go back to wall, take a look at my properties there. We got a basic wall, generic 5, okay? Now, we're gonna make it unconnected, and the height there is gonna be 9 feet. And again, because this is gonna be my interior, I'm gonna use the wall center line, right? Now, you can see how the 2D draw tools are highlighted. We can go ahead and get started. Now, as I zoom into a wall here, you'll be able to detect the midpoint fairly easily, right? All right, so we can find our midpoint in here. And as we come out in this 180 direction here, again, once you point it in direction, all you need to do is type in your distance. Now think about this, right? We want this to be 20 by 12, right? So again, you have to consider the dimension of the wall, and we're laying the wall out with a center line. So we need, it's a 5-inch wall, we need 2.5 inches, so we need to enter 20 feet, 2.5 inches, right? We could do that like this, 20 space 2 space 1/2. That's how we do 20 and 2.5 inches. Okay. Now we can escape, and also again we can track. Right. You can see how I'm tracking to one edge of the wall there, and coming back across. Again, paying attention to the angle indication, and then escape. So if we take a look over here in the corner, we're going to be creating our bathroom area there, which is a 10 by 7. Once again, you should think about the way that Revit drafts your walls. We're using the same wall type. Okay, but now this time, if you take a look here, what we want to do is we want to start our wall some distance away that's going to produce the 10-foot space inside, right? So if you take a look at the way, as I'm moving across that wall, how it's making the measurement. You can see to the exterior wall, it's in the center, right? And it's going to be to the center of the interior wall that I'm going to draw. You got 6 inches there. You got 2.5 inches for the smaller interior wall. So you got to take that into consideration, plus the 10-foot space that you want to create there, right? So we got 10 feet, 8.5 inches, right? So all I have to do is, you can see right now that little temporary dimension. I can specify how far away from that measurement, or from that reference line there, and I'm going to do that with 10 feet, space 8, space 1/2 inches. Okay, and then I can point it down, and once again, we've got 7 foot inside, plus the 2.5 inches of the interior wall. That's 7 feet, space 2, space 1/2. And then we can close it there. Alright, so now that we have the walls laid out, now we can move on to take a look at our doors and our windows.